Hey, it's David Thomas coming to you with your morning devotion for Orchard Hills Church. Hope everybody's having an awesome and blessed morning so far, and I hope this blesses you in many ways. So today I'm actually going to talk about a really important topic, and it's one that's really hits close to my heart because it's something that I struggled with, and I think a lot of people struggle with it, is what is the will of God for my life? Right? You're trying to live a good life. You're trying to live according to the scripture. You're trying to do what is you've been told you're supposed to do. And they said, well, whatever's the will of God. Well, how do I know what the will of God is? Right? I mean, how am I supposed to know what the will of God is? That's the question, right? And so many times we think of God as the Easter bunny who's just, going through the woods, hiding the will of God, his will. So we have to find it, right? And maybe we find it, maybe we don't. And then there's others that think of the will of God as an undesirable thing, right? How the will of God is something that's going to be no fun, right? He's a cosmic killjoy, and everything that is in line with his will for us is going to be opposite of what we truly desire to do, right? So we're going to have to accept to be miserable in order to do the will of God. Some people think that, and that's a really depressing way to look at it. Some people think of the will of God as being a divine experience, right? It's just, you're walking down the street and you slip and you fall and you knock your head and you wake up and, oh, I'm supposed to go to the mission field. That's the will of God for me, right? That's what people think, that it's some traumatic divine experience is going to, fluster you into, wow, okay, I didn't know that. Now I know what I need to do, right? Some people think of that. Others think of it as a lottery ticket. How, maybe you get the winning lottery ticket. Maybe you figure out what God's will is. Maybe you don't, right? You're lucky if you do. You're probably just going to keep trying, your whole life. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's another way to look at it. Another way some people look at it is connecting the dots. Life is a series of little tiny wills of God that are placed around your life that you have to connect to, right? And if you miss a dot, then your life's going to spiral off. If you don't marry this particular person, that dot's not going to be connected correctly. If you don't have this particular job, then your life's going to go off track. And it's not about, the Bible teaches us it's not about, the will of God is not about what we do. It's not about who we should be. I mean, the question is the true question, really, what it comes down to is, what is the will of God? All right. David in Psalms 143:10, he says, Lord, teach me to do your will. This is key. This is absolutely key. He says, teach me to do your will. He doesn't say, tell me what your will is, reveal your will to me, right? He's not trying to learn God's will, find God's will, asking God to manifest his will. It assumes that he already knows what God's will is. He just needs God to teach him how to do it, right? So it's not a matter of not having any information. It's a matter of obedience. And when it comes to the will of God, if it's not about not knowing what it is, if it's not about the information, but about obedience, then that means we should already know what the will of God is. Right? And you're saying, well, that helps me a lot, Dave. Thanks. I still don't know what the will of God is. So we have to turn to the one place that, if it's assumed that we already know what the will of God is, we have to turn to the one place where God has revealed his will to us. And where is that? That's in the scripture, right? So the answer to the riddle is, what is the will of God? We have to dive into the scriptures. And so what I want to do, and I'm not going to have enough time to do this today because we do want to keep these short, I'm going to actually create a 5-part series of the 5 things that the scripture says is the will of God. All right. I'm going to give you number 1 today. And so, it's very important to know this. I mean, first and foremost, when the disciples asked Jesus, teach us how to pray, what was the first line? Lord, your will be done. Right. So this is a very important topic, and we need to dive into it and really uncover it. But I'm going to read, I'm going to quote from 2 Peter. Let me find that verse, make sure I had it. 2 Peter 3:9. All right. So 2 Peter 3:9, this is the first number one, what is the will of God? Is this whole chapter is about the false prophets, right? They're basically slandering Jesus, saying, well, if he's the true Messiah, why hasn't he come back yet? And Peter answers them and says he hasn't come back yet, not because he's gone back on his word. He hasn't come back because he's long suffering, that his will is that no man shall perish. All right, so that's the number one, the will of God for you is that no man or woman shall perish. So what does that translate to? The will of God for you, the number one will of God for you is salvation. God wills that you be saved. God wills that you don't spend eternity separated from him. He wants you to be in union with him for eternity. That is his will. He does not will that you perish. He wills that you will be saved. So know from the number one point, the will of God for your life is that you be saved. All right. So that is number one, the will of God for your life, that you be saved. I'm going to go over these in some more sections. Now, these are, I'm not going to do these back to back to back, because as you know, if you watch these for, amount of time, my father, he jumps in here and he does most of the devotions, but I am going to jump in here from time to time, and I'm going to label these so you can keep track of them. But we're going to go through a 5-part series of what is the will of God for your life. And remember, the first will of God, the first point is that you be saved. All right, so I hope this blessed you today. If it did, please like, comment, share this with others. Definitely tune in. Keep an eye out for the next devotion that I do, because we're going to follow along with this series of what is the will of God for your life. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will talk to you very soon. Take care.